Okay guys, hello, I'm ToeGrinder. This is going to be my guide for Fire Mage in 10.1.5. I'm going to try to make these guides a lot more streamlined and get all of the necessary information out ASAP without making a bunch of 40-minute videos. So I'm just going to jump straight into it, starting off with raid talents. This is what I would consider the standard build. There are a couple of things you can change. If you're ever in a fight where energized barriers isn't very good, you can take the blast wave and barriers point and put it somewhere else. Probably incantation of swiftness. And if you're ever not in range to dragon's breath, you can put that point in flow of time. In the spec tree, there's not much you can really switch about. If you're in a situation where fire starter isn't good, such as Echo of Neltharion, you can put that point into meteor or control destruction. The Living Bomb talents are terrible. We don't even cast Living Bomb, but the only reason we take them is because Firefall is extremely good and we want to path down to that. In dungeons, in the class tree, I take the active utility points. If you're ever in a situation where you don't need one of these points, you can put those points into Winter's Protection instead. And you can also optionally swap Mass Barrier to Mass Invis if you're doing Invis skips. In the spec tree, there's not a huge amount I would swap around. Again, the Meteor and Firestarter points are maybe interchangeable, but I think Meteor is a lot better here in dungeons. And then we also take the Flame Strike talents down the right-hand side of the tree. Okay, if you're really new to Fire Mage, the main mechanic of the spec is Hot Streak. So whenever you crit twice in a row, you get a Hot Streak. So you crit once, this is your heating up. And then you crit again and you get Hot Streak. Hot Streak makes Pyroblast and Flame Strike instant cast. They are your spenders. And they do the majority of your damage. Pyroblast on single target and Flame Strike on AOE. So the main way we do this is through Fireblast. So we cast spells until we crit once naturally, and then Fireblast is off the global cooldown and castable while casting. So then we get our first crit naturally, and then we use Fireblast to convert that heating up into the second crit for Hot Streak. So essentially, your filler is you're going to just cast Fireball until one crits, you press Fireblast, and then you consume the Hot Streak using either Pyroblast or Flame Strike. And then you just keep repeating that sequence and you use abilities like Meteor, Phoenix Flames, and consume your Sun King's Blessing procs in between. One thing that it is very important to do is you always want to cast a Fireball before a Pyroblast. And the reason for that is if I'm casting a Fireball and then I Fireblast and Pyroblast at the end of the cast, both spells will land at the same time. That means if one of them crits and the other one doesn't, you do not lose the heating up from the spell that crit, because there is a small grace window where the spell that didn't crit won't remove the heating up from the spell that did crit. This trick does not work with Scorch because Scorch has a instant travel time. So the other main important part of the rotation is Combustion. So Combustion is the main DPS cooldown, and to maximize the damage during Combustion, we want to have as many instant casts during it as possible. So Combustion gives us a 100% crit chance for the duration, so because every Pyroblast or Flame Strike is going to crit, we only need one other spell to give us Hot Streak. So that means we will alternate between Pyroblast or Flame Strike and one of our instant cast spells that will give us Hot Streak. Most likely Fireblast, but whenever you run out of Fireblast, you can use spells like Phoenix Flames and Scorch instead. If you consume Sun King's Blessing while you're in Combustion, it will add 6 seconds to your current combustion, but if you combust while you have Sun King's Blessing up, it will just reset to the default 12 seconds. Starting off with the Combustion Priority. First off, the highest priority in Combustion is to cast Shifting Power if you don't have enough Fireblast or Phoenix Flame charges, but realistically this should never happen if you play the rotation correctly. So simply put, we want to cast Pyroblast with a Sun King's Blessing. If we don't have Sun King's Blessing and we have Hot Streak, we want to cast Pyroblast again. If we have Heating Up and Charring Embers has less than 3 seconds left, we want to cast Phoenix Flame. So Charring Embers is our tier set. So how the tier set works is Phoenix Flames applies a debuff to the target that makes it take 5% increased damage, and whenever you cast spells into that debuff, once you cast 20 spells, the next 2 Phoenix Flames deal increased damage and refund a charge. So we want to make sure that that debuff is up at all times. The reason I say 3 seconds left is really it's 2 global cooldowns, because if you are in a situation where you've got a heating up and you decide not to Phoenix Flames, You can't really Phoenix Flames on the next global because you'll have hot streaks, so you're essentially committing to not casting Phoenix Flames for 2 globals, which is why 3 seconds is generally a good rule. And then if you have Heating Up, you cast Fire Blast, and then if you don't have any Fire Blast charges, you can use Phoenix Flames with the proc from the 4 set. And then if you've got nothing left to cast in Combustion, you can cast Scorch because it's a fast travel time and cast time. So it is the fastest way to generate a hot streak during Combustion. So essentially the crux of it is cast Pyroblast, cast something else, cast Pyroblast, cast something else. And you always want to be maintaining your 4 set debuff and your Feel the Burn. So I'm just going to show off an example. Because Combustion is castable while casting, it's quite common that you want to cast a spell into Combustion and activate Combustion during the cast. If you're doing that, you always want to make sure that you have a hot streak at the end of the cast so that you're not waiting. So if I go Fireball, Phoenix Flames, so I'm going to cast a Combustion and Pyroblast at the end of this cast, and then I'm going to stack up my Feel the Burns, and then I'm just going to be alternating spells and making sure to maintain both my procs. So I get a Sun King's Blessing, I can spend it, refresh my tier set, and that's Combustion. So whenever it comes to your priority outside Combustion, it's fairly simple. You want to cast Shifting Power if Combustion is not coming off cooldown and you've used all your Fire Blast charges. Essentially, just don't waste cooldown reduction with Combustion. Again, you want to be maintaining your Phoenix Flames Charring Embers debuff. You ideally want to cast it in a way that you can force a hot streak. So, for example, if you already have a Heating Up and Charring Embers is running out, then you can Phoenix Flame, Profess your Charring Embers and get a hot streak, so you can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. This is especially useful if you're also refreshing Feel the Burn with that Phoenix Flames. Don't cap on Fire Blast and Phoenix Flames charges, and then you cast Pyroblast with a hot streak, always cast Fireball before it. Cast Fire Blast with a Heating Up, and then you will replace Fireball with Scorch if the target is below 30% health because of the Searing Touch talent. So seeing that in reality, fairly simple. Phoenix Flames, keep the buff up. I'm just going to keep casting spells until 1 crits, and then I'm going to Fire Blast, and then Pyroblast at the end of the cast. So refreshing my Phoenix Flames buff, Fire Blast to not overcap, and you just keep doing this. Eventually, you will reach 8 stacks of Sun King's Blessing. Whenever you're doing the filler rotation, it happens quite slowly. But whenever you reach 8 stacks of Sun King's Blessing, you just want to hard cast a Pyroblast and go into the combustion rotation for those 6 seconds. Like so. Whenever you're actually playing this in a fight, you won't actually build up that slowly because you'll be getting stacks from combustion before. Okay, AOE rotation. There are 2 ways to deal AOE damage as fire. The first is you just do your single target rotation to a priority mob, and because of Ignite, Ignite will spread to all the secondary targets and you will deal AOE damage. You should do this whenever there's a priority target or you're at a low target count AOE. Once you reach 3+ targets, Flame Strike becomes a better use of AOE damage. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's better to use Flame Strike, it just means it will do more total damage if there's an important target, such as a boss. You know, if you're on something like Echo of Niltharion and you're in the last phase, you know, you want to keep doing damage to the boss and just let Ignite deal with all the adds. You don't actually want to be Flame Striking there. So 3+ targets, if you value AOE damage, switch to Flame Strike. This is obviously under the assumption that you have the Flame Strike talents, which you may not in a single target build. So basically what we want to do on AOE is just replace Pyroblast with Flame Strike. That's it. There is not really much to think about other than that. The main thing being is that Flame Strike has no travel time, and the hot streak that you will generate off a Flame Strike that will crit will come instantly, unlike with Pyroblast where it needs to wait to reach the target. So that has some implications, like if you're casting a Flame Strike with Sun King's Blessing and you already have a Healing Up, then just remember that at the end of that cast it will immediately convert into a hot streak. So going over that, I'll just recap it. You cast Shifting Power if Combustion and Fire Blast are on cooldown as to not waste CDR, Phoenix Flames to keep up your tier set buff, hard cast Flame Strike with Sun King's Blessing, On AoE, it is more common to have Meteor talented, so you do want to cast Meteor on close to cooldown, but at the same time you want to sync it with Combustion. One thing you can do with Meteor is you can cast it and then activate Combustion before Meteor hits the target, and the Meteor will crit. And then don't cap on your Phoenix Flames and Fire Blast charges. Cast Flame Strike with Hot Streak. And as well in AoE, you can use Dragon's Breath to contribute to Hot Streak, because Dragon's Breath is an AoE ability, and with Alexstras's Fury, it always crits and it contributes to Hot Streak. So that's a nice bonus that you get on AoE. And then again, you fill with Fireball or fill with Scorch if the target is below 30% health. I'm just going to show you what the filler rotation looks like on AoE. So exactly the same, except I'm replacing Pyroblast with Flame Strike. So I'm casting Fireballs, and eventually one will crit. And I Flame Strike, Phoenix Flames to keep my tier set up. Fireball or Fire Blast and not cap charges. I get a Sun King's Blessing. So you can see there, I was casting the Flame Strike with just a heating up, knowing that whenever it ends, it's going to give me a hot streak, because the Sun King's Blessing will make a crit, which is something that's slightly different from single target. So Combustion Priority on AoE, the only difference is that we're going to incorporate Meteor. So again, we shifting power if we've not got enough Fire Blast or Phoenix Flames charges to extend Feel the Burn, but that should never happen. Flame Strike with Sun King's Blessing or Hot Streak. Phoenix Flames if Charring Embers is going to run out. Fire Blast or Phoenix Flames with Heating Up. And then we Scorch if we've got nothing else to do because of the fast travel time. Okay, so here's an example of the AoE rotation during Combustion. So I still want to do my Fireball, Flame Strike, and then I can cast Meteor, Combustion with it in the air, and then go into my regular Combustion rotation. And then I can cast my Sun King's Blessing with just a Heating Up, because I know it's going to crit at the end. And I can also Dragon's Breath. Whenever it comes to gearing for Fire Mage, it's pretty simple. Haste and Burst are by far your best stats, with Haste being the number one. Crit and Mastery are quite bad. Mastery has some uses if you're in a situation where you're Ignite Cleaving and actually care about the Ignite Cleave damage, but I think that that's quite niche in the game right now. So in general, you always want to have Haste Verse on your gear. If you're crafting gear, that's easy enough, but you really want to avoid gear with Crit and Mastery on it, especially Crit. But as always, sim yourself. As far as trinkets go, there are a couple of good trinkets. Double passive trinkets are pretty good now for fire because of the flattened damage profile, but unused trinkets like Spoils of Niltharius and Iridius Fragment are still good. Whenever it comes to crafting and embellishments, I recommend you always craft weapon first, and then whenever it comes to embellishments, I think that Shadow Flame Tempered Armor Patch on 2 pieces is the best. If you want to drop one of those, Undulating Spore Cloak is also a very good defensive embellishment, which is really good for Mythic Plus. Okay, that's me for today. Thank you very much for watching. I am trying to make some more streamlined guides that just sort of get into the meat of stuff as quickly as possible and don't drill on about random crap for 40 minutes. So if you like this style of guide, let me know. If you prefer the more drawn out stuff, also let me know. Remember to subscribe to the channel and check out my stream where I will be streaming a lot of raids and dungeons, and I'm also thinking about trying to do the Mage Towers again. It's been a long time. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.